Everyone, it's Emily Fox. Today's video is going to be all about my end of the year series. Today we are doing the most disappointing books that I've read in 2023. There will also be my most surprising, the worst, the best. Everything will be linked in the description box when they come out. And like I said, the most disappointing, which means not the worst, not to be confused, but books that sometimes I had expectations that weren't met. Sometimes they just were a little bit more mediocre than I expected, and I struggled to finish them. This is definitely not my worst year because I've been learning to put down books pretty quickly when I'm not enjoying them, but I still found a lot that I didn't really care for. The first book is a pretty good example of that for me, and it is Happy Place by Emily Henry. I really enjoyed Book Lovers and Beach Read by her. Didn't really care for People We Meet on Vacation, but what I had enjoyed in her other books is that the banter is really good, which it still is in here, but her other characters tended to be more emotionally mature and just older in general, and in here they just aren't. They really annoyed me because they were together for years and years and years, and then they broke up 6 months ago and didn't tell anyone, and then they were forced to go on this trip with their best friends and just pretend everything is fine, which, like, I get that you have to have something to, you know, build some tension, fine, but the reasoning behind it, and like if you've been together for so long and still can't communicate, it's just so annoying. And like I get that it's probably very realistic, but I don't want to read about it. I like enemies to lovers, sure, but like the lovers to kind of enemies because you can't talk, and then possibly lovers again if you read the book, no, it doesn't work for me. So yes, I just spent the whole time being really annoyed, enjoying the banter here and there, but even though the ending was good, I just was annoyed the whole time. Like, why? Not worth it to me. Yeah, you do get, you know, found family vibes and like good parts that I've enjoyed again in their other books, but I don't think this one was worth it. I can't say I'm the biggest romance reader. I do have quite a few pet peeves in that genre, but I thought she was my exception, and maybe she still is. I will be reading her next book that comes out next year, but this was a disappointing book for me. So cute though, like why? Speaking of cute book that did not live up to the hype for me, Notes on an Execution. This was part of a list of books that I thought I was going to give 5-star to. Like, I really was predicting this was going to be a favorite of mine. I had seen it on multiple lists of best books I've read that year. And the premise, so up my alley. You follow the story of a serial killer, and he has been arrested, and you're just getting his story, his backstory through the eyes of the women in his life. I was like, sold, absolutely. No, this is not what you're getting. You're actually getting his point of view, like half the book. And I just really didn't care. Every time I would go back to him, I would want to read in diagonal. I didn't do it, but I really wanted to because I hated his point of view. It was really boring, and I feel like the main female characters that you would get, their point of views wasn't as important as they could have been, and I just kept losing interest more and more. Like, at first I felt bad for, again, the main male character because he had it rough. You know, you see his childhood and then what brought him to this point, what he has done, blah, 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 and the reasoning behind it. But I really didn't care. I'm happy with the ending, which I didn't think I was going to say that, but the whole thing was disappointing. My edition is like specifically big because I have the big print. I bought it used, but you can tell. But it was not worth it. I am incredibly disappointed, especially, again, when you have expectations, but like at the end of the day, you can't have never any expectations because you get into a book, you add it to your TBR because you see other people rave about it, right? And that's what happened to me with this one. I really thought this was going to be finally a good mystery thriller for me, but no. I'm starting to think that genre is not for me. And it sucks because I really want to love them and I keep trying them, but it was purple too. I love lavender and it sucked. Speaking of sucky book, The Apollo Murders. I've been meaning to read a nonfiction by the author. He is an astronaut. So like, I have his book on my shelf, but he also wrote a fiction book, and I was like, this is it. I love space. And this one, again, in theory, the premise I had heard sounded cool. That's not exactly what happens, which ruins it. But you have someone that is murdered in space, and, you know, it has to be someone that is there. That's what I had heard. That's not really what happens, to be honest. I could not stand the actual story. It's not really sci-fi. It's definitely like military sci-fi, which I cannot stand any military book. In my defense, again, I didn't know. So if you love military fiction, this is going to be your jam. It is like historical fiction-ish. I couldn't stand any of the characters. The male characters were so amazing. And again, maybe historically accurate. I don't care. I don't want to read that anymore. I have become very cutthroat with that concept of just putting down books when I'm not enjoying them. And I should have, but I kept going because I thought it was going to get better, and it really, really didn't. I believe this is technically a series, which I have no interest in continuing. The only character that was decent was the female character, and even then, it's very much like US versus Russian, and not for me. Really, really not for me. It's my fault. I should have read the actual premise more, but I thought, you know, the concept of someone being murdered in space and like it has to be someone. I had read one more book with that concept and I really wanted to try more, and this just did not live up to the hype in my head. Speaking of the hype in my head, oh my gosh, the Gollum and the Genie. Okay, this had been on my shelf for like 5+ years. I have been doing my read it or unhaul it challenge. Basically, I wrote down all the books. Where is it? The giant jar here. I wrote down the name of all the books that are unread on my shelves, and I've been picking up a couple every month and trying to either read them or unhaul them. And I was so happy when this book was picked up from the jar because I have been meaning to read this for years and I keep forgetting about it. Like I forget to pick it up. And I was so happy. I thought I was going to love it, and I didn't. While it is fantasy, I feel like I would categorize it more as historical fiction. So if you're someone that loves historical fiction, like literary fiction, and you're trying to get into fantasy, this might be more for you. It is extremely character driven. Basically nothing happens, which is fine. Like at first I was enjoying the setting because you're following these two characters. One of them being a Gollum. She's been created to be, you know, the perfect woman, basically a slave of this dude, and they're traveling towards New York when she is awakened, and tragically, not really, the man dies and she arrives alone. That's like the first chapter. It's not a spoiler. And she is stuck trying to build a life and understand what it is to be human, trying to pass and live her life. And you're also following the Genie, this man who gets out of this olive oil bottle, as they do, and also tries to figure out, you know, what to do with his life because he has been in there for years and years and years. He doesn't remember exactly how he got stuck in there, and you're following them. Again, in theory, that sounds good. In practice, I was bored out of my mind. And also the Genie has a relationship with a 15-year-old girl, which again, my tolerance for that shit is so low. And like, I feel like this is the kind of thing that maybe I'll look past it if everything else is really good, but no, I don't even know why I finished it. I should have never finished that, but I'm still learning to put down books when I'm not enjoying them. I don't really recommend it, but obviously if you love that stuff, not the going after 15-year-old girls, but more like the historical fiction, slow pace, more about the setting kind of books, this might be your thing. But yeah, I can't wait to get rid of this, which is so annoying because I thought I was going to love it and I didn't. Next we have The Measure. You guys warned me, but I really wanted to try it because I'm a sucker for good concepts, and this one definitely has one. Sci-fi-ish, but again, it's more speculative fiction, I guess, than really sci-fi. You're following multiple characters in a version of a world where one day everyone over the age, is it 21, 22, they wake up and they have a box, and in that box they get a string, and it tells you, like, the length tells you how long you have left basically to be alive. So obviously it affects the whole world, people trying to figure out how many years does that mean, and like, so super interesting concept. I was very invested, and then it became extremely character driven, and I feel like I would have expected more chaos. There's no way, okay? Like, not really a spoiler, I'm keeping this vague, not that much happens to be honest, but I feel like chaos would actually happen. Like, a little bit happens in here, but like nowhere near what I would expect. And yeah, it ended up being kind of boring. I feel like you wouldn't think though, because it's such an interesting topic. But yeah, too character driven for me, not much happens. The characters, I was not invested in any of them. Again, you follow a bunch of them, I want to say 8, and like it gets repetitive and just a bit underwhelming. So for me, this was very much disappointing. Again, you warned me, but I wanted to try it. How could I not with that concept? But yeah, not my jam. If you have anything else that is somewhat similar, let me know, but definitely not a favorite for me. I feel like we all have books that we tell ourselves that once in our life we want to actually get to them, especially classics. I feel like we all have a list. Not all, but a lot of us want to try the classics, and I try the classic, Anna Karenina, which, oh my gosh, I don't understand how some of you are forced to read this in high school. How? I struggled so hard to read this. How many pages? My edition has 800 pages. I went through most of it as an audiobook, and it was like 35.5 hours or something. Super long. It was easy to go through, I'll give it that. The characters are insufferable. I understand the whole exploration of like how, I don't know, like the main female character was really explored into it. how they were treated, what they could and couldn't do in life. I get that. There was a lot more about horses and hunting and what else, stuff like that than I expected. It wasn't really about Anna, to be honest. Like, she was there, but like she wasn't really the main character. And some of the concept, like political, whatever, socio-economical comments about society, fine. But again, it was not worth going through all of this. And to be honest, I have since learned more about Tolstoy, and mostly his wife, and how she had it rough. And now I want to read about her, and I don't want to read his books because he was rude to her. But yes, either way, I think everyone can agree that everyone's favorite character is Train. That's all I'm going to say. So go Train. This sounds mean, but I feel like it's kind of mild compared to other things I've said in previous years. So what? Oh my god, The Whispers. I don't even remember reading this. I didn't even grab it. The Whispers. I forgot I read this. Yeah, I forgot. That tells you again everything you need to know. It is a mystery thriller. Again, should I give up? Probably, but I'm stubborn. This I picked up because I had read The Push by the same author. It made it to my best, I think it was 2 years ago. This was pushed back. It was supposed to be coming out last year. And I read it, and I won't read anything else by her because I'm seeing the repetitive themes, and once was fun. In her previous book, it was like a woman has a child. Is the child possessed? Evil? Is the mom losing it? You don't really know. And there are some comments, social commentaries about, you know, families and husband being useless, whatever. And again, in that book, it made sense. And in this book, it just becomes too family drama for my personal taste. You have this woman, there's been like a party in the backyard, and one woman was overheard yelling at her kid, and then kid later on is found pushed, fallen off a window at the top of the house. Who knows? But ultimately, it was all about people cheating on each other on that street, the little neighborhood gossip, and I just could not stand it. I feel like all I could think of is like, please, everyone should just divorce and stop. Like, I can't deal. So this is not my kind of book. I am all for comments about motherhood. I get it, but not for me. I never want to read in the book. I kept going because, again, stubbornly, I thought maybe the ending was going to make everything worth it because I had really enjoyed her other book. But no, if you're not feeling it or any of these books, honestly, put them down. I'm telling you, I'm giving you permission. I know some of you are really struggling to put down books, and I'm still struggling clearly, but don't do it. It is not worth, the ending is not worth it. Please Google it. Google it. The next one is Bittersweet because I've really wanted to love this series, but I'm officially done. I've mentioned it. The third book being The Cruelest Month by Louise Penny. This is the third book in the Inspector Armand Gamache series. I really wanted to love this because it is set in Quebec. I'm Quebecoise. I really wanted to love this whole like murder mystery, small town. You know, there's like 20 books in that series. Like a bunch of people are apparently dying in there. But I love small towns, and I liked the characters in the first book. I really wanted to get attached to them, but I feel like it just keeps getting worse. And since this was the third book, I finished it. I completely forgot what it was about, which sounds like I keep doing that, but trust me, I rarely forget what a book is about. They're just very much forgettable, and the characters are not good enough to compensate for any of this. Book 2 was straight up offensive, but I kept hearing, oh, it gets better. It never does. Stop telling me that. It never does. I'm officially giving up on this series. Absolutely never again. No matter how Quebecois it is, I don't care. You're not going to make me read another one. So yes, I am so disappointed that this wasn't as good as the hype was saying, but yeah, I read 3, okay? How many more do I have to read before it gets better? Like, no, I'm done. This one hurts my feelings, but it's done. This one's probably going to be one of the most controversial in here, and it is The Man Who Died Twice. Bear with me. I really wanted to love this series. I think it's the Thursday Murder Club series. It's also the name of the first book in that series. You're following older main characters, which I've been mentioning how much I wanted to read more books with older characters, and in this case they're all like 70s, 80s, which is really funny because they're trying to solve murder mysteries, which go you. And they so happen to have one on site in the first book, and then the second book keeps up going, and it's just was very forgettable. I listened to it as an audiobook. I don't think I would have finished it otherwise. I really wanted to get attached to characters. Everyone was saying how much they were invested, and I just didn't care. So I finished it just because, again, I was hoping to, but I believe there are 4 books in this series. There's no way I'm continuing. I'm so done. So yes, unfortunately, wasn't for me, but this one I think is popular for a reason. It probably will work for you more than it did for me. Maybe, again, mystery thrillers are not for me. I refuse to believe that, but maybe. The next one is going to be quick because, again, it's just overall disappointment. This is Lone Women. I had read another book by the author, The Ballad of Black Tom, which was a novella, like 100 pages, and it was like urban fantasy. It was good. I had enjoyed myself, and I had told myself that I wanted to try more by the author. And this is a full-length novel he came out with, and I was really excited. Horror. I wanted to love horror. Apparently, maybe I don't like horror. It starts good. You follow this woman. She is traveling in the US. I guess it's historical fiction horror. And she is traveling with this huge, how do you call those in English? Like luggage? Trunk. There you go. This huge trunk that is very much locked and like mysterious, very heavy. What does she travel with? So it starts really good. And the second part one was over, my interest was over. I finished it again out of sheer stubbornness. I just wanted it to get better, and I was not invested whatsoever afterwards. It seems to be an unpopular opinion, so might be worth a shot, but if you feel the same, feel free to comment. You're not alone. And last but certainly not least, we have The Last Party by Claire McIntosh. I just finished this, and finish is a big word because my gosh, was it a struggle. It took me like over a week to read this. It is not a big book. It's like 400 pages, not even. Yeah, just over 400 pages. It was awful. 200 pages into it, I was already telling myself I should have put it down days ago. But I kept going because stubbornness. To be fair, I had read more books by the author, and my favorite one is, I think it's I Let You Go. That one I do think is worth it. And then I read more books by her, and they weren't anything worth reading for me, so I wasn't planning on reading more until this one came out and decided to give it a shot. And it straight up felt like it was written by a different person. Please confirm in the comment section if you felt similarly. I hated everyone, and this is going to be a series. You know, I will never pick up another book in that series. Main character is super unlikable. It's set where the author apparently lives, so it kind of in the border of like the UK and Wales? Is that what it is? Anyway, there's a lake, and the people are not happy because someone that lived there became rich and famous-ish, and then went back to town to buy this piece of land and then tried to build the shore, a bunch of like expensive houses for rich people. And then one day his body is found, and who did it kind of thing. And I, again, was extremely bored. Everything was extremely soul-based. Hated every single character. And you get some reveals throughout the book, one of them being like, again, at the end of the first part, which was not that exciting, to be honest. And then I feel like it just went downhill. It was already not great, but it just kept going down. And I don't believe the ending. Like, what happened was not that believable. I feel like there were a bunch of plot holes and a bunch of things that, like, were never closed off, which again made more sense when I realized it was going to be a series. But what was this? Didn't feel like she was the one that wrote it compared to the other books I had read by her. It has been years, so maybe she has changed as an author, whatever. Bored out of my mind, nothing happens, and whenever you do get the answers, it's not satisfying. So this was just a big flop for me. And it's like one of the last books I will read in 2023, so not ending things on a good note here. So here we go. I feel like it wasn't that bad. I feel like some of the past years have been a lot more dramatic. This was just a bunch of, I should have put it down. I finished them out of sheer stubbornness because I thought it was going to get better, and I had been told it was going to be good, and it wasn't. Obviously, everyone's taste is going to be different, so it's fine. I'm not, you know, mad at anyone or anything, but it's gonna happen, and it's okay. I really like to normalize this whole concept that you're not gonna like everything, even the really popular books. And that's it. Definitely subscribe, thumbs up, because more videos are coming in that series. I'm going to put some on the screen, and I will see you in the next one very soon.